I had a couple of questions. I said, if your son was in the same position, would you do this surgery? Would you do it in this hospital? He said, yes, I would. And the next question I asked him was when we should do it. And his answer was, how much sleep do you want to lose over it?
How can having an atrial septal defect, or ASD, affect a baby's growth and development? Specifically, could an ASD be responsible for feeding issues? What are the dangers of surgeons operating on a baby too soon if their congenital heart defect is ASD? Welcome to Heart with Anna. I am Anna Jaworski and your host. I am also a heart mom to Alexander, who is an adult with a single ventricle heart. Alex is a full-time pharmacy tech, aspiring author, and game creator. He's also the reason I've been writing, speaking, and podcasting for the CHD community for the last 2.5 decades. I'm very excited about today's program to feature a special heart mom. Today's show is entitled A Family Dealing with an Atrial Septal Defect. Amna Saeed Salman is the author of Style Stripped, a prominent fashion and lifestyle blog in Pakistan. She is also mom to beautiful 4-year-old twin boys. One of the boys was diagnosed with a 24-millimeter atrial septal defect, or ASD, at age 1. Amna researched surgery options in England, Pakistan, and America and received differing opinions. Watching her son struggle to keep up with his brother, she decided to go for the surgery when he was 20 months of age. Amna noticed an immediate improvement in her son, and today he is thriving. Welcome to Heart with Anna, Amna.
Thank you for that. I'm happy to be here.
I'm so happy to have you here. I'd like to start with us talking about your pregnancy with your sons. When did you find out you were having twins?
My pregnancy was actually very smooth. I found out that I had 2 sacs at the first scan, but I was told by the doctor that we might lose one, as is with some twin pregnancies. But I'm glad that it stayed, and that's that.
Oh my goodness, I didn't know that it was common to lose one.
Yeah, I don't know. They sort of prepare you that when you do have twins, because it was really early on. So they said that within a week or 2 weeks, it could just be one. So just be prepared for that. We went in really early on for the ultrasound. We were very excited, of course.
Of course you were, of course. Now, did you have any complications with the twins?
None at all. I say this with a lot of surprise sometimes because I've heard of horrible twin pregnancies and you tend to Google everything and there are horror stories, but it was a smooth ride. Just at the end, there's so much weight, there's so much pressure, the sheer existence of 2 babies, 2 sacs, and 2 placentas in your body, that just gets too much. Other than that, it was a smooth ride, thank God.
Right. Now, did you have to be put on bed rest?
None at all, actually. The funny thing is that when I found out I had twins, my room was really small. So we decided to extend it. So like a week before my delivery, I was actually standing in a broken room overseeing the construction. That's how well I was till
Oh
the
my
end.
gosh, really?
Yes.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
My husband literally had to threaten me by the end that you better not go, and the ditches everywhere and you can't possibly do this. And then I decided, okay, for the last week, I won't go.
Oh my goodness. Well, that's wonderful that you were able to stay so active, and it doesn't sound like you let anything stop you.
Nothing at all, yes.
Now, I've known some people who have had twins, and it seems like there's always a dominant twin. There's always one twin that is bigger than the other. Was that the same case with you?
Yes, that is true. And we found that Mustafa, my son, the one that had ASD, was the dominant twin in the sense that, he was, it was so surprising. He took most of the feed. And when he was born, he was 6 pounds. And Ahmed was 4 pounds, the one that didn't have the ASD. So Mustafa was definitely the dominant twin.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So we know that your son was diagnosed with his ASD at age 1. When did you suspect that something might be wrong and what kind of problems did he have?
I've been in touch with a lot of ASD moms, as you know, on the group on Facebook as well. My son was at par, and since I have twins, the comparison was every day, every minute, every second. And Mustafa and Ahmed were at par with their heights, their weights, their entire growth. Mustafa's activity level, I would say, was about 30% less than his brother, but nothing, and I mean nothing else was different. He used to eat well, he used to play well, and he was happy and excited. How I found out about his ASD was a complete, I would call it a miracle, because I was in England and we were holidaying there and it had been a month. And on the last day, Mustafa started coughing really badly as though he couldn't breathe. So I called in the ambulance, the paramedics came, and they said that he has croup virus, which is a very common thing for kids in England to have at this time of year. And they just gave him a medicine and he was all well. But as with their protocol, he was taken to the hospital just to make sure that everything is well, since I was traveling back the next day to Pakistan, where, as you know, medical facilities are not as good as England or America, etc. So when he was being discharged from the hospital, they took his, vitals, like his heartbeat and all that. That's where they found out that his heartbeat was like 350 and 380, but he was calm as a cookie. Maybe he was just like
Wow.
tired or dehydrated. I don't know what it was. But believe you me, one of my aunts was there. I left Mustafa with her and she said that they'd be taking her vitals. I went outside the hospital to actually call a taxi. And by the time I came in, Anna, I cannot tell you, Mustafa had like 5 doctors, 10 nurses around him, and I was in a complete shock as to what's going on. I just left him fine. And then they told me that this is happening and we need to find a vein, and it may be triggering for some people, but they actually pricked him about 18 times in my
Oh,
lab. Yes,
oh, I'm
because
so
they couldn't
sorry.
find a vein. Oh, it
Sure,
was horrible.
sure. And then
And
once they start
again,
pricking, he starts crying,
yeah.
and then it makes it even harder to do that blood draw.
Absolutely. And they failed. And
Oh,
then they had to actually, again, trigger warning, drill up a bit of his bone to get the medicine in.
oh
And
my
eventually they
goodness.
took him away from me. And they said that we are going to take him to the resuscitation room and we don't know whether he's going to survive.
Oh, Amna.
I know. Imagine listening to
Oh
that.
my gosh.
And
Yes,
then
that's
10 minutes.
terrifying.
Yeah, and then 10 minutes passed by, and those 10 minutes were obviously like 1,000 years for me.
Sure, sure,
Yeah, and then a male nurse came running in and he said, we found his jugular vein, the one on the neck,
sure.
and that we are able to get the medicine in him and he's stable for now. He was sent to the CCU, then a hospital was shifted to take him to a specialist hospital. It's called Evelina in London.
Hmm.
It's very popular.
Hmm.
It's where Prince William and Kate also come and work a lot with the staff. And that about 4 a.m. in the morning, completely drained with my son. I was completely alone. There was no family there with me. And an echocardiogram just walked in with his echocardiogram machine. I'm sure everybody who's hearing this knows what that's about.
Hmm.
He came, he did an echo on Mustafa, and very casually, business as always for him, I'm sure, told me that he had an ASD of 24 and that he would need an open heart operation. And of course, the only thing I understood at that point was the open heart operation. I didn't know what he was talking about. So
Sure.
that's how I found out.
Home Tonight Forever by the Baby Blue Sound Collective. I think what I love so much about this CD is that some of the songs were inspired by the patients.
Many listeners will understand many of the different songs and what they've been inspired by. Our new album will be available on iTunes, Amazon.com, Spotify.
I love the fact that the proceeds from this CD are actually going to help those with congenital heart defects.
Enjoy the music.
Home Tonight Forever. This content is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. The opinions expressed in the podcast are not those of Hearts Unite the Globe, but of the hosts and guests, and are intended to spark discussion about issues pertaining to congenital heart disease or bereavement.
You are listening to Heart with Anna. If you have a question or comment that you would like addressed on our show, please send an email to Anna Jaworski at anna@hearttoheartwithanna.com. That's anna@hearttoheartwithanna.com. Now, back to Heart with Anna.
Now, before the break, we learned a little bit about your son's heart condition and the roller coaster ride you went on, thinking that maybe he had a little cold, to finding out that he might die in someone else's arms away from you. I mean, oh my goodness. Let's talk about how life is different for you now. Now you've become an advocate and you help to support others. I learned about you because we're in the same Facebook group together. So how important has it been for you to be a source of support online for other people who have heart defects like your son's?
I think the most important thing is just to support mothers when it comes to their children, because I know for a fact that there is nothing worse in the world than seeing your child in pain or pass away before you do. So specifically, Mustafa's issue is, I feel like God put me into this place that I had this journey. And honestly, the more you hear about it, it just sounds like a script of a movie. It was like everything fell into place. And I felt by the end of it so blessed. I know it was a trial. I know it was a difficult time, but in the end, we got there. And I feel like anything at all I can do for anyone else who's in the same place as I was. There was no resources in Pakistan for me. Right. And I was in England just for holiday. So I had to come back. So I started looking online on Facebook and on Instagram, and I found this group and I joined it. And believe you me, Anna, when I posted there the first time, even when somebody would post a comment as short as, "Don't worry, kids are resilient, it's going to be absolutely fine in the end," it would be like everything. It would mean the world to me. It would give me mountains of hope. If I can do that for somebody, like I've been in that situation, and my husband, he got really weak when he found out about Mustafa. I feel like men are more emotional. I don't know, but correct me if I'm wrong, but anything that goes wrong with your children, I feel like it's the mother who's mostly taking the stand. And I was alone in making all decisions for Mustafa. So I felt like if I could go online, if I could help somebody with even a couple of words, and I feel like I don't do it enough, I should be more active, then, I'm all for it. And it's so important that you should never underestimate the power of just 2-3 kind words even.
Oh, I agree with you 100%. Well, you said that there was no support for you in Pakistan when Mustafa was first diagnosed. Is it different now? Are there some support groups in Pakistan?
No, see, the whole sort of our medicine and our hospitals and everything works very differently. There is a huge lack of empathy in general, and especially when it comes to kids. Like in America, like I told you, I did a lot of research. Like in America, if you go get a surgery, there is an entire team that is just there to give emotional support to the family, to give them information. That's not like that. You go to a doctor and it's on their sort of discretion as to how much information they want to give to you. And they don't always take you seriously. I feel like somebody like me, I'm an educated person. I have a lot of questions. And when it comes to my son, you can imagine, I was so thorough with the doctors that some of them get put off as well, because that's not the culture here. That's not the medical culture here. So there was absolutely no support, and there was support in one sense, but that support, of course, was like a burden of decision making as well. Like my parents and my husband, his family, my family. I mean, I feel very grateful, and I'm very lucky that Mustafa has 2 parents. Mustafa has loving families, and they were supporting me in the sense that whatever decision you take for your son, we'll stand behind you. But that's a blessing and a curse.
Yeah, because it's all on you.
In professional terms, there is no support for ASD moms or moms who have kids with congenital heart diseases, which is ever so common now. But there is no professional support.
It just surprises me that there's so little support, because I've spoken with some other people from Pakistan on my program, Amna, and it seems like there's a higher average of babies born with heart defects in Pakistan than in the population worldwide at large. And one of the people that I was talking to said that they felt that one of the reasons was because people can marry cousins in Pakistan. It's not frowned upon, or even second cousins, and that there are more babies that are born with birth defects.
That's true, but these birth defects sort of are classified in things as well. Like me and Salman were not cousins, but it still happened. So I feel like we really don't know the root cause, but there is a plethora of things that can go wrong if you marry a cousin. And I've heard of a test also, like a blood test that one should get done to have your genes and all that checked before you get married. And you should do that, especially if you're marrying a cousin.
Right.
But I think this particular issue is probably not related to that, because me and Salman, my husband and I, were not cousins.
I'm not cousins with my husband either. And you're absolutely right. Most of us don't know what causes it. I wish we did. I wish we did, because there's so much mystery around it, and so much guilt.
Yeah, and you're just scared of having another baby, to be honest. After this, it's just that it rides on your head like, okay, I had twins. One of them had ASD. We got through it. But what if it happens again? Recently, my husband went through COVID and he had a tough time. He had a nosebleed because of all the blood thinning. He's fine now. But I told him when we went to the hospital, I said to him, listen, I feel like I have utilized one lifetime worth of strength when I went through what I went through. And I feel like I don't have strength now to stand with you in the hospital or even go to a doctor for myself. I feel like that part has finished now. I can't do anything.
Now, I can understand why you would feel that way, especially COVID is so frightening. But I have found that just the opposite is true. Once you are able to hand your baby off to a surgeon, knowing that baby's chest is going to be opened and all the different things that we have to sign that we know could happen, that would mean that we wouldn't get our baby back whole. Surviving that, Amna, that makes us stronger.
That's true. I think,
and it's a new baseline for us. You know what? Anytime something else bad happens to you, you can say, well, at least it's not open heart surgery. And if it is open heart surgery, like in my case, my sons had 3 of them. When it came time for the second one, we said, well, at least it's not an emergency surgery this time. And then when it was the third one, we thought, well, at least we know he's survived 2 other times. I think that each time you go through something like that, it makes you a little bit stronger, because wait a minute, this kid's tough. He's already made it through one, and we're tough because we made it through by his side. You're stronger than you realize, Amna. You are a strong woman. And when I met
thank you for saying that.
When I met you on Facebook, if you say met, we were in the same group together. There was another mother who was wondering, what should I do? She was in the same quandary you were in. When should we have surgery for our baby? So how did you decide when your son should have his surgery?
I'm a perfectionist in whatever I do. And when I found out that Mustafa was going through this, I just sat down. I opened all the channels possible. I explored America. I explored England. I explored Dubai. I explored Pakistan. By the time we landed in Pakistan, I had already made an appointment with the best pediatric cardiologist in Pakistan. We saw him about 5 to 6 days after we landed. So the first medical suggestion that I heard was from the doctor in England at the Evelina, and his name was Dr. Pushparajan. He was the pediatric cardiologist there. Basically, they put him on ethanol, which is a beta blocker, right?
Okay.
So they said that we cannot risk to take him off this medicine because we don't know whether this medicine is what's keeping his heart rate balanced, or is it just gone back to normal itself? right? So
Mm.
this doctor suggested that we keep on giving him that medicine for the next 3 years. And of course, every medicine has its side effect. And in 3 years, the time going up to 3 years, we basically just wait for him to get miserable enough for a surgery. That's what I'll
Oh,
say. Yeah. So in
I like
England, they
that.
really pushed the card till the end. And even though his surgery was going to be a private surgery and not on NHS or anything, but that's what his opinion was. Now I come to the doctor in Pakistan. The doctor in Pakistan was a cardiologist and not a surgeon. And he referred us to another doctor who was the surgeon who did this kind of surgery in Lahore, Pakistan. And he suggested that Mustafa get up to a certain weight
Uh-huh.
or be at least 2 years old. Mind you, he was 1 year old when we went to him. So another 12 months before we can consider him a good candidate for surgery.
Mm-hmm.
And now the third opinion came from an American doctor who was the head at Cleveland Clinic. And
Okay.
his name is Dr. Muhammad Ali Mumtaz. And by sheer God's will, I think he was here at a hospital on a charity mission. He was taking no money from them. Can you imagine? He quit his job in
Wow.
America, a
Wow.
well-paying job in America, and he came down to Pakistan in a city called Rabwa, in a hospital called Tahir Heart Hospital. It's run by the India Muslim organization, and he was here for 3 years. And he was the exact doctor that I needed for Mustafa.
It
So I
sounds
got
like
in touch.
it.
Doesn't it?
Oh,
Isn't it just like a
absolutely.
movie script?
Yes, it sounds
You
like
know?
God put just the right
Yeah.
person in your path. That is amazing.
And the right time. The first time I found out about him, I knew that he used to come here, do his operations, and then fly back. So immediately I thought, but what about the follow-up? What about if something goes
Right.
wrong next week or the next week?
Yeah.
But
Mhm.
this time he had come for a straight 3 years. Can you imagine?
Wow.
You know, when you were talking about being grateful earlier, yes, I'm so grateful. I tell my brothers also that I'm so grateful that Mustafa's issue was just a stitch in the heart and he was good as new. And it
Yeah.
wasn't a mental problem and it wasn't one of these syndromes that you cannot fix with a surgery.
Sure.
And then the entire experience is just moments of being grateful that everything just fell into place. So I got in touch with Dr. Muhammad Ali Mumtaz while he was in America, and he was kind enough to give me 40, 50 minutes of his time over the phone. And when he finally came here, we met him in November, and he was surprised. He was like, "This is the patient?" I said, yes. He's like, I have seen kids who are a year old, but physically they look like they're 6 months or they're 8 months. And ASD does horrible things to kids. Your guy here, he's like a lion. You know, Mustafa was screaming on the top of his lungs on top of a table when the doctor came in. And he was like, wow, look at him.
Wow.
He's so healthy and everything is working fine. But eventually we sat down with the doctor and I had a couple of questions. I said, if your son was in the same position, would you do this surgery? Would you do it in this hospital? He said, yes, I would. And the next question I asked him was when we should do it. And his answer was, how much sleep do you want to lose over it?
Anna Jaworski has written several books to empower the congenital heart defect or CHD community. These books can be found at Amazon.com or at her website, www.babyheartspress.com. Her bestseller is The Heart of a Mother, an anthology of stories written by women for women in the CHD community. Anna's other books, My Brother Needs an Operation, The Heart of a Father, and Hypoplastic Left Heart Syndrome, a handbook for parents, will help you understand that you are not alone. Visit babyheartspress.com to find out more.
Heart to Heart with Anna is a presentation of Hearts Unite the Globe and is part of the Hug Podcast Network. Hearts Unite the Globe is a non-profit organization devoted to providing resources to the congenital heart defect community to uplift, empower, and enrich the lives of our community members. If you would like access to free resources pertaining to the CHD community, please visit our website at www.congenitalheartdefects.com for information about CHD, the hospitals that treat children with CHD, summer camps for CHD survivors, and much, much more.
You had me on the edge of my seat How much sleep did you want to lose? Tell us what happened
Yeah.
next.
Okay, so basically, we met him in November, as I told you, and it was a cold month. And when the doctor met him, he was very glad to see him. He was in good health. He was screaming on the top of his lungs, sitting on top of a table. So the doctor felt that he was a very good candidate and we should just go ahead whenever I wanted. So the only request I made to him was to wait for a few months so the weather could be a little better. And I feel like every mother who can afford to just wait 3-4 months should make a request to their doctors if they want to allow that. In Pakistan, we also have much higher risk of infections after the operations. Just keeping in mind that it would be his chest and his lungs and an open heart operation, all those things. I wanted it to be in February end or March, which is very good weather in Pakistan, and there isn't a lot of risk of infections. And that's what we chose. March 23rd is when we got him operated.
That is such excellent advice. I know that here in the United States as well, we worry when it's cold and flu season, when RSV is rampant, because, our kids might survive their open heart surgery only to get RSV or a common cold that ends up turning into endocarditis. And so then there's swelling around their heart, and that can be a complication that could be life-threatening. So you're right. If you can avoid having surgery during the worst of the flu season, absolutely, if you can put it off. So it sounds like you optimized everything for Mustafa, right?
I don't know what was going on in my brain. I feel like God just wired me like that. All the doors in my brain were open. How about this? How are we going to handle this? How are we going to handle that? And, I feel like it's an adrenaline rush as well, because you know that it's your child on the line. And like you say, that, you hand your child over to the surgeon and, he's going to be opened up and all that. Another thing that I did was I called one of my best friends and I was like, oh my God, what is happening? She said something very interesting to me. She said, listen, you are in a position to make decisions for him, and he is in a very weak position. So please put your tears and emotions aside for the duration, put a rock on your heart, and just head up and be strong. You cannot afford to be emotional right now. And I feel like it was a very, very stern thing to say. It might even upset some people, but that's exactly what I needed to hear. And after that, it was just logical decisions, what makes sense, and just keeping it all in my mind that I have to do it for him.
Yeah. I felt like I went on automatic pilot.
That's true. That's the word, actually.
Yeah. I mean, I felt like looking back on it now, it almost feels like it happened to somebody else, Amna.
Oh, that time hasn't come for me, but I'm sure it will.
It will, sweetheart. It will. I mean,
I hope so.
My son's 27, so it's been a long time since those surgeries. And I look back and wonder, how did I get through that? And
well done, you.
It's been challenging. And I wondered if there would ever come a time when that wasn't the first thing I thought of in the morning and the last thing I thought of at night. And I can tell you that time does come. It feels like it's a long time before it comes.
It's a long time.
Especially if you have a child like my son. He had multiple surgeries, and we knew he had staged surgeries. So there were those gaps in time. You kind of felt an oppression over you because you knew that was still ahead of you. But let's talk about Mustafa. So he had his surgery. He was already the bigger twin. He did a good job feeding. But did you notice a difference with him after he had his surgery?
Oh, 180 degree. His personality, Anna, I cannot tell you. His personality just switched. He was always slow, and I just felt like one of his uncles was like a chill sort of a guy, and I just felt like this is his personality. I had twins. One of the twins is a little loud and talkative, and the other one is a bit slow. So what? And I'll tell you one thing: when they were taking his stitches off, he wasn't under general anesthesia. He was semi-sedated, and even that didn't work very well on him. But I just said, let's get over with it. After his last stitch came off, I felt like after that very moment, he was a different boy.
Really? How interesting.
Yes, he was louder. He was happier. And you know what? He's the naughtier twin now. He is such a boss around all of the house. everybody is scared of him. He is like
he,
on top
he
of
is a
his
lion.
game.
Oh my
He's a
goodness.
lion and he loves outdoors and he loves sports. And the other one will happily sit on his iPad. But Mustafa will be like, let's go, let's play cricket, let's play football. He is that child
Wow.
now. And I have seen him flip completely. At 4 months, he got really sick. And as a normal mother with an undiagnosed issue, I felt it would be just like gas and he's colic. And I got these medicines from Germany and these feeders from England and all that. And he passed that. But now I feel like one observation that I make is that 1 year where he was undiagnosed, everything that happened to him, I feel like, oh, maybe it was ASD related. So that
Yeah.
is one thing. There must be all kinds of people listening to this podcast, but I'm a believer and I'm so thankful to God that we got through that 1 year to get
Yes.
an opportunity to be operated, to have a better life, to fix him, basically, to say so.
Yes, absolutely. Just getting that diagnosis, it made me wonder, Amna, how many babies who died SIDS deaths actually
No,
died from an undiagnosed heart defect.
too many, too many. I mean, when he was born, they were supposed to do an echocardiogram, but they didn't, Anna. So, I mean, this is the state of hospitals in Pakistan. Like, you get a list of checks that they're supposed to do, but they only do the hearing and the sight and a couple of other things, and they don't take off the echocardiogram. Just imagine if it was done when he was born,
Oh,
maybe
yeah.
things would have
They
been
would have
different.
seen, they
But
may have been
now
different.
now at the end of the road, I feel like it couldn't have been any better. I feel like God had a plan. We were on holiday in England. Can you imagine that he was diagnosed one day before we were flying off? So we had a jolly good time, 1 month in London, traveling and enjoying
Sure.
and eating. And then just one day before our flight, all of this roller coaster started. But yeah, I'm grateful.
It's amazing. You really do have a made for TV movie.
I do. I tell this to people. It's like a script of a movie.
It really is. It is so
Yeah.
amazing. And I feel like you do that things happen for a reason. But I'm curious. In the United States, we have had a movement to have pulse oximetry in our hospitals so that we can see the oxygen levels of the children.
Yeah.
And most children who have critical congenital heart defects, their oxygen saturation level will not be 98, 99, or 100. It may be significantly less. And that's a quick indicator that's
It's a good tell.
non-invasive.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a great tell. And then a lot of times they can pick it up and those babies won't go home and pass away in an unexpected way. Are they doing pulse oximetry in Pakistan?
They are not. Although I feel like because of COVID, it's become so common. Everybody has a pulse oximeter in their house now. Yes, because if you have COVID, then it's one of the symptoms that your oxygen level goes down. So people are very aware of that. Of course, I had to from Mustafa's time. But like I said, when he got diagnosed, when I got in touch with the doctor, is when I myself also learned about all these things, right? So our go-to are doctors. The first person to check when my son is born is his pediatrician. If he's not going to check it, then who is? So I'm all for this movement. I feel like as much checks as possible, since it is such a common thing to have congenital heart diseases, then why not? If you're saving lives, then why not? I don't see any reason.
I agree with you 100%. You were just talking about COVID, and that has added so much stress to our lives, but especially families who have children with congenital heart disease. Have there been any special precautions that you've taken with your son because of his ASD, because of his prior condition?
So I have 5 brothers and they like to play with my sons a lot. So one of them will always like take him up and jump him really high in the air. And my mother, till date, after his operation, till date, whenever he does that, he's like, oh, be careful. What about his heart? And I tell her, Mom, it's all done. It's all gone. It's all fixed. But you're right. That feeling, like a damp feeling in your heart, never really goes away. Every time he has a flu,
Mm-hmm.
Every time he has a fever, there is this voice inside of me. And without telling my husband, sometimes like 3-4 months down the line, I would just take him to the hospital and I'll just get an ECG done and email it to his surgeon. That's what I do to keep myself calm and collected. And because of COVID, we haven't actually gotten to visit the surgeon himself because the
Sure.
city he's in had a really high rate. So he advised us to stay where we are in Lahore and get an ECG done locally and just to email it to him. So I think that's one precaution that I'm taking. And the
Mm-hmm.
other thing, I have 4-year-old twin boys. What precaution are they going to let me take? To be honest. I mean, I can't stop them from playing. I can't stop them from dancing in the rain. We have monsoon right now, and they're all over in the ground whenever there's rain. So I want them to have a happy childhood as well. And I feel like
Sure.
you need to expose the kids to some extent to all the elements in life so they have that immunity as well to go on. If you keep them too protected, I'm one of those moms, right? I feel like go out, play in the mud, go in the water. I feel like that makes them stronger. It boosts up their immunity, actually. So, relating to Corona and COVID, we are taking the precautions that are levied by the government, but nothing else. They do wear a mask to school, which is unfortunate, and I feel really bad for them. But I
Yeah.
feel like it's important. So let's hope things sort out for the entire world.
Oh, yes, I'm 100% with you. Now, are
God
they
willing.
doing in-person school? Because a lot of places now are doing school virtually.
So what happens is we in our government looks at about keeping it below 5% of COVID rates in a city. Every time you exceed 5%, they go online. So when
Mhm.
school started this session, they went to school on campus for about a month. And now for the last 2 weeks, we have been online. And this is the third week going on. And we are expecting schools to open this Thursday. But that is, of course, again, up to the government discretion. So if they say it's safe to open schools, they will open. If they say they're closed, unfortunately, I'm the teacher at home and it's online school and I'm locked in a room for 2 hours with them and it's not fun.
You sound like such a delightful mother. You're so
Oh,
understanding about their
I tried
conditions,
to
being
be.
twins,
Yeah.
and the natural exuberance that little
Oh,
boys
yes.
will
Oh,
will
yes.
exhibit, and you're not wanting to squash that. And God bless you for that, Amna. Now, tell me, did your son's doctor say once he had that surgery, he's fixed, or did he say you need to be aware that there could be something further down the line?
No, actually, before the surgery, they were doing the echo and stuff, but he said he could have up to 3 issues, and we
Mm.
can't be 100% sure till we open him up.
Mhm.
But gladly, Alhamdulillah, when they did open him up, I requested him to send out a doctor while he was doing the surgery. I made a request that when you open him up, please send somebody outside to tell me. When you know that there is only one issue and not three, please send somebody outside to tell me. And when you're closing him up, please send somebody outside to tell me. And he complied, and I'm very grateful for him. And there was only one issue, but after that, he said that he is just fine. And I can tell you this, that he was such a good surgeon that when Mustafa came out, I was allowed to see him when he was still sedated from a distance, not
Mhm.
close. He had zero swelling, Anna.
Oh my goodness.
He had zero swelling,
Wow.
and they put a really thick tube for blood and water to come out
Mhm.
after post op, and it's supposed to be there for a long while. But his tube came out in half the time, and the doctors were like, "We are so pleased. He has responded so well. There is absolutely no swelling, no extra water, and no extra blood in his body right now."
Wow. That's amazing. It's a miracle. Now, how long was it before he was discharged?
So he was discharged actually in about 8 days. And I went back to my mom's place for a while and then I came to my own house. But he let his stitches stay for a long time. And he said that when it's this kind of surgery with such a long incision, I, as a surgeon, prefer for the stitches to stay for a while. So that's another discussion to have with your doctor, what kind of stitches they're going to put in, or is it going to be the traditional ones or the dissolvable ones, and how long.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm kind of surprised he didn't get the dissolvable kind because that's what my son had.
Yeah, and that's what they do usually. But the surgeon, since he wasn't working in an American environment, he was allowed to make his own decisions. He was like, I have felt sometimes that people have come back to me that one of the dissolvable stitches have sort of opened up or there have been issues with it. So I personally prefer the old ones, and I prefer to leave them on as long as it's medically possible so that we are 100% sure that everything is A-okay.
Wow. You've got
Yeah.
an amazing surgeon.
He is amazing. And I'll tell you another thing, because there is no emotional support department in Pakistan, he was doing all that, Anna. He would come into a room and he would say, where are his grandparents? Where are his uncles and aunts? Does somebody need to ask me a question? I'm here, whatever you want, any kind of support, any kind of questions. He really literally made himself available to us, and he made himself available to us emotionally as well. And we're actually not used to it. We were in a shock.
Yeah.
Wow, such a doctor with so much empathy.
Wow.
Where is he from? Like,
especially to talk to the grandparents too.
He would ask for everyone himself.
Wow. Well, God certainly has blessed you in so many ways, and God has blessed me by having us meet. And I have so enjoyed this, Amna. Thank you so much for coming on my program. This has been so delightful.
Thank you for having me. I'm really happy to be here. And I really hope that it helps people who are going through the same issues as we did at one time.
I hope so too. I think your story is a beacon of light, and it will be for some people who are in a very dark place. So this has been just lovely. I can't believe it's time for us to close the show, but that is it for today, my friends. If you enjoyed this episode of Heart to Heart with Anna, please consider becoming a patron of our program. Patrons help us to keep our programming free of charge and to help us grow our network. Hearts Unite the Globe has a podcast for the congenital heart defect community and the bereaved community and the Spanish-speaking CHD community. We believe it's important for everyone everywhere to have access to this CHD information. So thanks in advance to those of you who have supported us. And remember, my friends, you are not alone.
Thank you again for joining us this week. We hope you have been inspired and empowered to become an advocate for the congenital heart defect community. Heart to Heart with Anna, with your host Anna Jaworski, can be heard every Tuesday at 12 noon Eastern Time.